Hi, my name is Claudio Salmin, Consulting System Engineer at Fortinet. In this video, I'm going to show you how the Fortinet Fabric Connector for Nuage Networks work. I will start with the presentation that describes the Fabric Connector for Nuage Networks. So what is Nuage Networks and how the Fabric Connectors work with Nuage Networks. Then I'm going to go into a demonstration. So I'll first of all show you how the Fabric Connector for Nuage looks like. Then I'll configure the Fabric Connector in a FortiGate VM. I'll create Fabric Connector objects in the FortiGate VM. And the last point will be to create service chaining rule, redirection rules in Nuage Networks to send the traffic to the FortiGate. Let's start with the description of what is Nuage Networks. So Nuage Networks is an SDN solution. It's made of three components. The first component is the VSD, the management plane. Is where the user connects to and does all the configuration. The VSD is connected to a cloud. And a cloud, for example, it can be OpenStack or it can be VMware. And the VSD imports the virtual machines created in the cloud and the networks created in the cloud. All the configuration done on the VSD are pushed down to the second component of the solution, the control plane, the VSC. And the VSC is in charge of programming the data plane. The data plane is made of hypervisors, and on every hypervisor there is the VRS module that is programmed by the VSC. What Fortinet has done is to develop a Fabric Connector. A Fabric Connector is an out-of-the-box solution that imports objects from the VSD. Let's say that on the VSD you create a logical container of all the web servers. The Fabric Connector is able to import this logical container into itself, and in turn, FortiManager and FortiGate can connect to the Fabric Connector and import these objects into their own database. And these are specific objects that we call dynamic objects, because if in the cloud something happens, meaning that you add remove VM to the logical container that contains all the web servers, there is no manual action required. The Fabric Connector is going to automatically detect this change and update all the objects available in FortiManager and FortiGate. Let's now log in into the Fabric Connector to have a look at what kind of configurations are available. Let's put username and password. And as a first thing, in the configuration tab, we'll see that there are different SDN connector type. We select Nuage. Then we have to select the VSD IP address, the Nuage organization, and then we need to select the Nuage user certificate and the user key that are available in Nuage. Then we have the running status tab that it tells us the synchronization status, the SDN controller status, and the SDN connector status. And then we have the cache content tab that shows us what kind of object have been imported from the VSD. Let's now connect in the FortiGate. The FortiGate is running version 6.03. And if we navigate to the Security Fabric tab and we select Fabric Connector, we can create a new Fabric Connector. We select Nuage Network Fabric Connector, we give it a name. We specify the IP address of the Fabric Connector, the username, and the password. After we click OK, we can see that the status is enabled and the connection is up. We can now create addresses to filter on objects that are available in Nuage Network. So we create one that we call Application Subnet. We select type Fabric Connector address, Fabric Connector type Nuage Network, organization Fortinet L3. The organization has been already created in Nuage Network and we'll see that later. And we filter based on the policy group name. And the policy group name we specify is app policy group. Then we click OK. We now create a new address to select the object on the database subnet. So we give it a name DB subnet. We select as a address type Fabric Connector address. We select Fabric Connector Nuage Network. Organization is the same as before, Fortinet L3, but this time we create a filter based on the subnet name that is called DB subnet. Then we click OK. We can now create a new address to filter on the web subnet. We call this address web subnet. We select as a address type Fabric Connector address. We select as a Fabric Connector type Nuage Network. Organization same as before. And subnet name is web subnet. We can now click OK. We also want to try to filter on all the objects available on the VSD. So we call the address all VMs. Fabric Connector address as a type, Nuage Network as a Fabric Connector type, and we only leave a filter on the organization, Fortinet L3, and that's it. So as soon as we create the addresses, it takes few seconds to populate them. Let's now create firewall policies to use the address object that we just created. In particular, we want to create a firewall policy to inspect the traffic between the web and the app. And we select as a source address the web subnet and as a destination address the app subnet. We also want to create a policy to inspect the traffic between the app and the DB. And we select as a source address the app subnet and as a destination address the DB subnet. And the last policy we want to create is to inspect the traffic between application to application. And we select as a source address the app subnet and as a destination address the app subnet as well. Let's now connect into the VSD. Let's navigate into the Fortinet organization, networks, L3 domain, and we scroll down to zone 1. In zone 1, we have web subnet, and in the web subnet we have the interface of web02, of a FortiGate VM, and web01. In the database subnet, we have the interface of FortiGate VM, DB01, and in the application subnet, we have the interfaces of a FortiGate VM, app01 and app02. In the Policy tab, we have pre-created a set of policies to redirect the traffic from any tier to any tier to the FortiGate VM. What's interesting is that we also have a policy to redirect the traffic between the application policy group to the application policy group. The virtual machines are running in VMware, and Nuage Network has written a plugin to specify how to connect the virtual machine into Nuage Networks. Let's open the console of web01 VM and let's ping the application server 10.0.2.11. If we go to the FortiGate VM and we refresh the firewall policies, we can see that the byte counter of the policy web to app is going to increase. Of course, if we disable the policy, the ping is going to stop. And if we re-enable it, the ping will flow again. Let's now ping the database 10.0.3.11. But in the firewall, we don't have a policy that allows the traffic between web and app. So the traffic is going to go into the implicit policy that has action deny. Let's now open app01 console. And from app01, we want to ping the database 10.0.3.11. This time, in the firewall, we have a dedicated policy to allow traffic between app and DB. And if we refresh, we see that byte counter increasing. From app01, let's now try to ping app02. As we have a dedicated policy that allows the traffic between VMs in the application subnet, the traffic is allowed, and if we refresh the page, we see the byte counter increasing. This concludes our demo. To recap, what I've shown you in this video is a description of Nuage Network SDN platform. I've showed you how the Nuage Networks Fabric Connector looks like. I've configured the Fabric Connector on the FortiGate VM, and I've also created Fabric Connector objects on the FortiGate VM. And at the end, I've showed how to create service chaining to redirect the traffic from Nuage Network to the FortiGate. Thank you.